Welcome back to the channel, guys, girls, and hunters around the globe. I didn't forget about this video. I was just taking my time to kind of refresh myself with the map itself. And in this video, we are actually going to be going through and looking at a guide for Nez Perce Valley. We have already done the other two maps, Aurora Shores and Transylvania. So if you're hunting those maps and you're having a hard time, make sure you check out the channel in the Way of the Hunter playlist, and you'll find both of those guides for you to help out just a little bit. Now, this is the starting map, but I do want to go ahead and give out a guide because even though most people probably have felt this one out by now, we are still picking up new players, and even if you're not new and you just haven't had that much time on this map, it's good to know where to go and where not to go. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be breaking it up in about 3 different sections. Of course, we're going to be looking at the hotspots, the mid spots that are, you know, kind of going on, not too much, but you can still hunt it pretty well, and then pretty much the dead zones where it's not so much like dead, but it's just not a great hunt, or there's just not a lot of species in that area. First thing, we are gonna be looking at the loadout and just the weapons that I kind of played around with while I was doing this hunt. This isn't exactly a rigid standard that you need to stick to. You can use a lot of different things. My preference is obviously that pump action 270, but we're not going to be using that one in this video. Then the last thing I will get into is kind of my overall rating of this map and kind of how it is dispersed as far as vegetation and species, and then we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's get straight into the loadout though. For our primary weapon, I am going to go ahead and use the Steyr Pro Hunter to the 7mm08. It's a great rifle. It's really good on this map because you don't have anything too big other than moose, and you can easily take them out with this rifle. You're pretty much set with that to get your 5-star hunter rating. And another rifle I would suggest using if you're shooting for that is the 308 Win, the Steyr monoblock. That's another great weapon because you can get up into those tier 6 animals and achieve a perfect rating. For the secondary, we're actually going to do something just a little bit different this time. We're not going to use the crossbow or another rifle per se. We're going to go ahead and jump into a shotgun with the Morning Silence 20 gauge. Now, the reason I'm throwing this out here is for the shotgun users and for the small game. Of course, there's not a lot of small game on this map, so that's why we're able to get away with kind of using this one here. With those two guns, the 7mm08 and the Morning Silence 20 gauge, we're actually going to be able to cover all these species from all the ducks and the waterfowl and geese all the way up to our elk and moose. Now, for a secondary, you could try and use the 16 gauge, but really right now it's so broken that it's just vaporizing all the small game within like 50 meters, so you're not going to get a perfect hunter rating for that. The glass options are going to be standard as always. For me, I'm going to be using the Overguard long range 3 to 15 by 50. Again, just to follow up, you can use the Leupold 6 HD 3 to 8 by 44. It's just that that reticle is so thick, I prefer not to use it myself. So then for the shotgun optic, we only have 2. We got that red dot zoom XD, which I kind of hate it. I don't really like it at all. It's okay though, we'll get around it. With this carbine optic, it's a lot better. The sight picture is a lot clearer just for me, and personally the only sight that I will use on shotguns other than the fixed sights. For the binoculars, I mean, it's same as always. We're going to be locked into the same old, so we're just going to move on to the calls once again. Now, for Nez Perce, we do get a little bit of mix and matching here with the elk call. In the first slot, you can use the elk call a lot more than the moose call, I feel like, because the moose don't, you know, spook as much, so you can get in there a little easier than you can with the elk. So that's why I rock the elk call most of all. Then you can use that bag rattle. That's really good for basically all the deer species here. You're gonna miss out on the goats and the sheep just because there's not anything for them. Then on the last one, you're gonna be able to swap that one out as well between the Ki Yi call and the Jackrabbit Predator call, just because the Jackrabbit Predator call brings in the badgers. The Ki Yi doesn't seem like it will, but you can also like kind of differentiate between a high fitness and a low fitness with the Ki Yi. So you kind of have 2 different hunt styles there, where you just kind of want to find a badger or whether you want to actually hunt a higher ranked animal. So I always say this, but kind of think about that before you head out on your hunt, because you gotta switch stuff around at your car or at the cabin. So once you're out there, you're out there. So having a little bit of foresight is gonna help you out a lot. Now, getting into these hot spots, mid spots, and dead zones, this map is pretty clear on how it operates. The center of the map is going to be just infested with animals. The outskirts of the map all the way around the edge are definitely going to be a lot lighter, but we do have some intermittent spots in between there. So let's go ahead and check out where those are. I think this was a great design option on the first hotspot. It is basically just right outside of the cabin. I mean, when you walk outside that cabin, you can almost instantly get badgers, fox, and pheasants. And then you walk out to the river, you're definitely going to be getting deer. And then a little further in, you'll get elk and bear and such. So that's just a really good spot right there for beginners. And the further south you go on that river valley, it's just more and more. So really just heading down south from the main cabin, you're going to get a lot of activity. For our second hotspot, I really like Yee's cabin in that lake right there. But if we go east into these other areas right here, there is actually a lot more of a diverse habitat. I mean, you got hares all the way up to elk and bear, and you just stick to these three campsites right here up by White Pine Orchards, and then like kind of the east side of She Devil and the north side of Thorn Springs. That area right in there, that like trifecta area, is just huge. There's so much going on there. I mean, it's just insane. And you can go a little bit north, but you're gonna have a harder time because it's just more spread out. Really, in between those three campsites, it's just going to be wild. For the next one, we're gonna head to the other side of the map on the east side over there by Small Paws. In between those three campsites on the very east side, that is just lit over there. There's so much going on that this is just a spot you guys gotta visit. You have badger, you have foxes, you have all the way up to elk, and it's a great place to hunt these things because it's so sparse. You can really get some good hunting in and see these critters wherever they're resting or eating inside the tree lines. Now for the fourth one, we're kind of gonna blend here, and it's gonna be this Cascade Forest. Mostly the west side and the east side of Hallowitch and Cascade Forest, all the way over to the river's mouth. That spot right there, it's about 2 kilometers, maybe 1.5 kilometers altogether, and it is pretty nice over there as well. I mean, it's a lot like Small Paws, but there's a little more forest and it's a lot higher elevation. I take that back. Now thinking on it, there might be a little less as far as trees, just because it is the highlands. If I'm remembering correctly, they're actually a lot more spread out and sparse. Just because of species diversity and how spread out they all are, this is going to be our last hotspot, and honestly, it barely made it. But it is going to be the cabin to the north of our lodge, is Ruiz cabin, and it's pretty much anywhere around there within about 1 kilometer between Breakwater and that. I wouldn't even go as north as Falls Reservoir. I would pretty much just stay to the south section of these swamps. And the only reason I'm including this one is because it goes from the ducks and the lesser scaup all the way up to moose, and sometimes you will get deer here. So that's basically the only reason I'm including it. If it didn't hit those different categories right there, I really wouldn't. I mean, every once in a while you'll get a bear as well, but you're not gonna get like just a plethora of stuff. It's mostly gonna be waterfowl and then big game. Now this might be controversial, but for our first mid spot, we're gonna go over to Diamond Drill. This is a really high genetic area, but it doesn't have a whole lot of species in there other than deer, fox, and wolves. So this is going to be our first mid spot. It's really thick over here. It is kind of difficult to hunt. Take your callers and be patient. Get in here for some trophies because they are definitely going to be had, especially on that west side. If you just crest over to the other campsite, there's some great spots over there to get some whitetail and mule deer. Heading on up to the north, this one almost made a hot spot, but because there is a hot spot just to the south, I just decided to make it a mid zone. Basically, just because of how dense this area is, the creatures aren't so condensed, they're more spread out here. And it's going to be on the north side of White Pine Orchards. Here you got a lot of diversity all the way from hares to elk. They're just really spread out, so it makes your hunt take just a little bit longer. But I would definitely recommend you come over here, even a little bit onto the east side of She-Devil. That whole area right around that campsite to the south is just, it's great. It's a good hunt, especially if you got a little bit of time on your hands. This next one's over at Yee's Cabin. That lake right there, I've gotten just plenty of trophies over there. All the way over to the west side where that campsite is, the lower one. It's just great over here, and you can pretty much get into it right away. Once you spawn in there, there's just critters everywhere, especially at the drink time. So I definitely recommend going there. I think next we're gonna head over to Hallowitch. It's really nice over there in the western side of the map. There's a lot of species diversity. You might have to walk, but it's really clear as far as like the density of the trees. So you're going to be able to see your prey fairly easy. You might just have to walk a little bit further to get into that. And then for the honorary mention, basically just because it was such a huge area between Diamond Drill and Green Acres, I will go ahead and throw in Green Acres as well as a mid spot here, because that north side on that river valley right there, that's really good hunting, especially for wolves and such. You can get in that tree stand or that little stand and just, you know, take some shots. Then you have the southern side, which is some nice forest hunting. You do get some elk, so I'm going to go ahead and include this one for the mid spot. Now for the dead zones, this is some spots you're going to want to stay clear of, or at least take some really good patience. That's going to be up in the northwest corner of the map, up in that She-Devil area. That place is just so spread out that it's really not worth hunting too hard. I mean, I don't go up there that often. I have been up there, and every time I go up there, I'm like, why am I up here? What am I doing? I could be hunting somewhere else with really better genetic animals. Now this next spot is mostly biased because I just do not like this spot. I do not know why, but between Falls Reservoir and the northern campsite up there, just having a moose as the main species I get, but it's just so rough when that's all you're hunting, that and waterfowl. There's just not a whole lot else going on. Now if you are hunting those species, that's a great space to go. It's just kind of hard to hunt up there otherwise. The next dead zone is kind of tucked in between two mid spots, and it's just to the northwest of Dustin's Cabin. You only got about 3 or 4 different species in there, maybe some bear. So really you're gonna have to take your time to get through there. Know that that's what you want to hunt, not that you want to hunt just anything at any time, because a lot of these species are going to be sleeping and drinking at the same time. So that's kind of why I include all these different tiers of species, because you'll have activity throughout the entire day. When you walk through a place like this, you're gonna have them sleeping at the same time or drinking at the same time. So when you go through here, you're not gonna have the activity you would at another area with more species. I mean, that's pretty much it. This map is really good as far as diversity goes. Just stay away from the edges. There's just nothing around the edges at all, pretty much with any of these maps, and you'll be safe. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get into the map breakdown. If you don't have Aurora Shores, this is the better of the two maps, Transylvania and Nez Perce. If you have Aurora Shores though, I would consider this one second best, only because Aurora Shores is small, packed with species, and kind of has the same type of map feeling with the mountains, the lowland mountains, and then the swamps and the plains and so on. I think this map is really good for beginners versus Transylvania. It does have the same amount of parking spots and campsites, so you're dealing with the same type of thing there, but just not as many dead zones as you would in Transylvania. In Transylvania, it feels like you kind of have to be there at the right time in some areas. Here, it's really nice because these hotspots are going to be really active, and the ones in Transylvania just not so much, so you won't be able to have the same kind of experience. But there you have it. That's all we have for you today. I'm really glad we were able to get this out before Tikamoon Plains is released. Still got my fingers crossed tightly for some early access. We will see, but either way, we will be covering the new map of Africa on August 11th, so check it out. We'll be streaming that day, and we'll be having a lot of content drop as well that week. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a thumbs up on it like always. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.